Welcome everybody to our final composer interview of the series. We're really excited to have with us Melika Fitzhugh, who is also a member of the staff of BNMI and a long time Boston area resident. One of the things she's known best for is writing for old instruments in modern settings. And so we'll start and we'll have her talk a little bit about her music.
Hi. So yeah, I love writing for historical instruments like recorders and harpsichord, the kirtle, predecessor to the bassoon family, shawm, predecessor to the oboe family, shruti box, which is sort of a proto-harmonium, harmonium being an Indian instrument that's bellows with one hand and has a keyboard, so it sounds a little bit like a accordion, but not quite, because it's got that reedy sound. Anyway, I like writing for instruments that are different temperament, so the instruments that are in mean tone or just intonation, as opposed to most modern instruments like the piano are equal temperament, where all the half steps are equal. But things like just intonation gives these really amazing, bright, amazing sounding fifths and octaves and such that I really, really love to explore. But I also write for modern instruments, orchestral. I have several orchestral pieces and a lot of chamber music, string quartets, string sextets, trios, and all sorts. The past couple of years, during the pandemic, I wrote a lot of solo works, as I imagine a lot of people have done. And I wrote a set of 8 pieces for all different sizes of the recorder, from the tiny, tiny little gark line, which is an octave above a soprano. The soprano, many of you might know from 3rd grade, but the recorder is not just an instrument for 3rd graders. It's a real adult-sized instrument. So some of the pieces that I wrote are for the contrabass, which is like 7 feet tall, so not a 3rd grade instrument. And I've written for, violins and pianos and organs and all sorts of things. So that's my output in a nutshell, I guess. So, did you have any particular questions for me, or?
You did. Yeah. So, well, okay. I'll start with a few questions, and then maybe what we'll do. Share. Did you have anything specific that you're going to share with us?
I will put a couple of links to YouTube in the chat. One is to my YouTube channel in general, which has a few things on there, including some pieces that I wrote for new musicians. So a friend of mine is a pianist, and she has a piano studio, and commissioned me to write pieces for her young pianists. From, I think the youngest was 6 and the eldest was 16 in 2020. So there's that set of pieces, some performed by the students themselves and some performed by an older professional pianist from a festival last year, I think. And also Emily O'Brien, who will be doing a live recorder workshop for us in June. She is playing 7 of the 8 pieces I wrote for the different sizes of recorder. So she has a playlist on her channel, which is, music for all the sizes or something like that. So if you want to check out some of that music, you can feel free to do so at your leisure. But you'll probably want to click on the links now so you have them after the Zoom has ended.
Yeah, so we might go back and I can share my screen and we might take a look at some of them. I had a question. Oh, so what, Mel, how did you become interested in old instruments? Yeah, how did you become interested?
Well, I was always interested when I first learned about temperament, the idea of it in freshman year of college. I took, Music 51 with John Stewart, not that John Stewart, but um, and he was talking. We did the first semester just looking at Bach's chorales, and then the second semester we started looking at the preludes and fugues and such of the well-tempered clavier. So all about Bach all the time, but I had never heard of anything other than equal temperament, and I was like, there's what, there's something else. It's like this, because even on classical radio stations and such at that time in the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s, we didn't hear a lot of period instrument stuff until I came to Boston, and there was the Boston Early Music Festival, and you heard things on historically, if not actual period and like old instruments that were from the time period, then new instruments that were built in that fashion to emulate that sound. And I was astounded by the difference. Like, what a C and G can be on a piano is lovely and fantastic. I love open fifths. They're fantastic. They're wonderful. But hearing it on, a set of recorders that are tuned in not in equal temperament, but in mean tone, like quarter comma mean tone, it's like, I've never heard such a thing. Like, they just the way they ring, and then that things didn't have to be tuned to A440. There's 415 for the Baroque, or 392 for the French Baroque, or 465 for some parts of some instruments in the Renaissance were apparently tuned to 465, if the extant instruments can be believed, or if they haven't changed over the years. But just having those different sounds and the different qualities of the sound, I always like to say that 415, especially in mean tone, just sounds chocolatier. Like the sound itself just feels different in the ears. And that's where I started. After I graduated from college, I joined an ensemble called Urban Myth that sort of mixed Renaissance music and West African percussion. It sounds weird, but it works, and it was lovely. But that was when I first was introduced to people who played kirtles, who made instruments, who played shawms, and I got to play a tenor shawm, which is more like a bassoon, but it's still in the oboe family. Anyway, double reed instrument, very cool. Can sound like someone very slowly strangling a duck if you don't know what you're doing, but professionals exist for that reason, and hearing them play these instruments was just amazing. So that's when I really got into going to Boston Early Music Festival, going to the exhibition hall, getting my paws on different instruments, playing with gut strings on a violin in 415. It just feels different. Like the instrument itself feels different. The bow, with the outward camber as opposed to the inward, it just holds different in the hand. Playing Bach or playing Bertali or something on a actual Baroque style instrument is just a completely different experience. It's so amazing. And I wanted to have that sound, that chocolatey, glorious, delicious sound, but I wanted to write for it. I wanted to use it in different ways than Bertali or Gesualdo or whatever. Like, he had some pretty interesting, holy crap, the chromaticisms, but I wanted to have my own compositions, but in that chocolatey sound. So that's when I started writing here and there for my friends who were early music folks and deeply involved in the Boston early music scene, and they were very gracious and played for me. So I wrote a quartet for 2 recorders and bass viola da gamba and harpsichord that I really enjoyed having played. Sopranino recorder, kirtle, and continual organ, and just all sorts of great fun. But essentially, it started with John Stewart, with the very idea that there was something beyond equal temperament, and A440.
Nice. Um, okay. Um, so cool. Oh yeah, that was well sort of a follow-up to that. How has your work and like knowledge of old instruments influenced your work for modern instruments, writing for modern instruments?
Well, it's interesting. Whenever I feel like I need some inspiration, I go straight to the Ars Subtilior because that's when really interesting things were happening. It's like 20 years at the end of the 1300s where people went mad with um, different proportion. Like, you know, one line of a piece would be in what we would write now as 6/8. Another is in 4/4, like all stacked on top of each other, just at the same time, different. So just the idea that not everything has to be in 4/4, you know, bouncing along nicely, but can have different, you know, have one line in one time signature and another and another. So it just opens. I feel like it opens me up a bit. Like, oh, this is something that can possibly be done, you know, because when you're listening to a lot of pop music or a lot of what is on like WCRB, it's all very 3/4, 6/8, 4, and it's all very nice and very tidy, and which is what I guess people want from their radio stations. But you know, going to hearing some Johannes Jaconia, it's like it gives me a little boost, and I like to think that that has opened me to be able to do more exciting things than I normally would have in my own composition. That and I like playing Balkan music. So
I was actually speaking of Balkan music, which I think the piece that BNMI did last at the
the
last
Living Music
festival.
Summit, yeah,
Yeah, remind me the title. I'm like
Whispered Love Across Skin.
Whispered Love Across Skin. That was influenced by Balkan music.
Yes.
Okay.
So that time signature, 19/8, is the same time signature as a Bulgarian, Macedonian. Ooh. Pretty sure it was a Bulgarian dance, Yova Male Mome, in 19/8. I just love the the way that the threes and twos would bounce off of each other to form like a cohesive measure. It was like a long measure, 19/8, but I just liked the sense of repetition that over a long time period, but that's different inside of itself.
Yeah, because it's
That made
different
no.
groups of threes and twos within it.
Yeah, but then that still repeats and repeats and repeats.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a cool piece. So actually, what I will do is I'm going to share and we'll watch our performance of that.
Oh, fantastic! I'll mute.
Okay, here we go. Let me share screen. No, share this one. Share. And let me know. I'm not 100% sure if I'm sharing sound. So somebody give me a thumbs up if you can hear it when it starts.
I heard something.
Okay.
Or actually, that might have just been your speakers. Hold up. Not hearing anything now.
Should be good. Okay. There we go. All right. Cool. Does anybody have any questions about that piece specifically that they want to ask? Or in general is fine too. I was going to ask Mel on that. There's a lot of indefinite pitches, like, you know, like sliding and glissandes and stuff like that. Is that from the Balkan influence, or is that just something that you like to do, you know, as part of the messing with tuning?
That's just part of, I just love the sound of glissandi. That's
smear, yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
And also it was like, that was a little bit of a nod to the whispered love across skin kind of.
Lied.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice.
So.
Cool. So one of the other pieces that I wanted to ask about and see if there's a place
Someone Kirsten was asking about the rit, which is essentially a Egyptian tambourine. It usually has a thicker shell than most the average tambourine you'll see, you know, on the streets, if you will. So it often has a deeper sound. So they usually often have a smaller head, but a thicker shell and bigger zills. Like most tambourines have zills that are about half dollar size, but the ones on Arik are usually a little bit bigger, and so it just has a slightly different sound to it, and a deeper sound when you actually tap the head.
Yeah, unfortunately, we couldn't see Julian playing it in the video, like, because he was behind somebody else.
He was behind, I think, the basses. It was like mysterious percussion sounds coming from nowhere.
Yeah, but
you saw him when he stepped out and played the
yeah, the marimba. We're like, oh, that's where it came from. Yeah. Cool. I wanted to ask, oh yeah, I was going to change topics. So I listened to a little bit of Road Rain, and I loved the like samples that you had on your website. Is there longer recordings in place of it?
Unfortunately, no, because it was from a live recording, and someone, of course, had a absolute coughing fit during most of the performance, and I have not yet gotten the second performance of it yet. Someday, because I do love it. The things I love about the recorder is you can, with great ease, hum and play different lines, like completely be polyphonic with yourself, and you can actually hear both parts really, really well. And I used quite a bit of that in Road Rain. In both, there's two movements. In both movements, I have, you know, a bit of polyphony, internal polyphony with the recorder player. It was tenor recorder and harpsichord. And it was great. It was so sad because John Tyson, who's a local recorder performer, and his wife Miyuki Tsuritani, they'd had a great performance of it, but there's some dude, well, I'd assume somebody was just coughing through most of it. I'm like, rah.
Oh, but it's so sad. Here, I'm gonna play the samples that you have just because so people can enjoy it. I thought they were just beautiful, and I was like, I want more. But here we go. So this is from the first movement. I think I have to share. Give me 1 second. Sorry. Share. There we go. Share. Okay. Can I ask Mel, what was like at the end of that second excerpt? There was sort of like a multiphonic sound. What was?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was multiphonics on the recorder. Yeah, good times. At some points, um, most of the multiphonics on recorder are 2 notes, but sometimes it will crack into 3, and it's very exciting when that happens, especially on the tenor. So it's pretty cool. And also he was singing through the recorder at one point.
Yeah. Okay.
So there was a lot of bending notes and bell notes, taking the recorder down lower than it's actually supposed to go. And so I like microtonality and doing things with the instrument that when you first look at it couldn't possibly, but yes it can.
Was this piece is this in a non-equal temperament tonation?
No, this one is in equal.
Okay.
For the most part, it's an equal temperament. Because he used a modern
harpsichord
tenor recorder for that,
Oh,
and she tuned the harpsichord to equal temperament.
That makes sense. Okay.
Probably because it was easier to do that, have equal half steps, because there was so much microtonality in the recorder part that it was just better to have the steadiness of the harpsichord.
That makes sense. Is a multiphonics on recorders kind of like on other, they're like easier on bigger instruments? Is that true for recorders?
Yes. I mean, one can do multiphonics on a soprano. I've never heard anybody do it on a sopranino, but alto and tenor is what most people perform solo repertoire on.
Right.
And there are well documented charts for multiphonics for those instruments, but it's really easy for the bass, for the bassette, the great bass, and the tenor contrabass recorders to do multiphonics when you're least expecting it. So much care has to be taken.
As in, not on purpose.
Sometimes not on purpose. Yes.
So okay, cool. Do you have any, just curious, any examples of pieces that are in another tuning system?
That I have recorded, no, because I tried to get a recording of my recorder Nonette, which was in just intonation, but again, live recording, someone is always deciding to cough constantly. So I don't have any recordings up yet. Hopefully someday I will get the recordings in my dreams. But yeah, I wrote a recorder sextet and a recorder nonette that were all just intonation for actual Renaissance style instruments, which are naturally tuned for just intonation.
Okay. Are they built slightly differently than even modern recorders? Okay.
Yeah. So a modern recorder, I happen to have somewhere in my bag. So a modern recorder, this is a plastic soprano, has a very narrow bore, and it's conical, so it's narrower at one end than the other. Renaissance style instruments, they're usually longer than their Baroque or modern counterparts, and have a much larger bore. Like if you compare a soprano to a soprano, this soprano is like very tiny little hole, and the one on a Renaissance style soprano is like almost the size of a quarter. So much larger, and it's not as conical. It's a straighter bore. So that means that it's got a much smaller range. So most Renaissance instruments only have an octave and a sixth or a seventh. Sometimes, if you're really adept with your shading and forked fingerings, you can get a full 2 octaves out of a Renaissance instrument. Whereas the average modern recorder has a range of 2 octaves and a third. But professionals, like, that's just what the intermediate player can do. Professionals can do with almost a full 3 octaves on a normal average Baroque style modern recorder. There are modern recorders that are made to do like the Helder tenor recorder, which I'm sure Emily will tell us all about in June, has a little over a 3 octave range because it has keys and extra holes here and there that the keys take care of and such. So yeah, recorder is a fascinating instrument.
Very cool. And also, yeah. So if you are interested in recording, I'll put in the plug right now. In writing for a recorder, Mel, along with Francis Blaker will be running a workshop on how to write for a recorder in 10 days on May 14th. If you aren't already signed up, you can go to bostonnewmusic.org/tickets and get that. And then, as Mel mentioned, Emily O'Brien, who's a wonderful player. I listened to some of the recordings that she's done of Mel's music, is going to be doing a workshop where she'll play some, and she'll also play some pieces. She'll tell us a little bit about playing recorder, and she'll also play some pieces if we get some submissions for people to write for recorder. So again, there's info at bostonnewmusic.org/tickets.
Yes.
Cool.
And I think we can talk her into bringing all of the sizes. So she has a Gark line, she has the big contrabass and such. Will be very exciting.
That would be fun. Yeah, nice.
We may need to hire an SUV to get her to the record company where the workshop will be. But
how big is the contrabass recorder?
A little under 7 feet tall, most of them. But it has a really long vocal, so if you're standing to play it, it has the vocal that goes up to the top.
Are they rare?
Oh, not as rare as you think. I mean, I can think of 4 different people in the Boston area alone who have contrabasses. Although secretly, I think John Tyson has 2 of them. But yeah, so there's 5 instruments. 4 of them are owned by different people.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Cool.
So funny enough is, I think that the great bass, so that's the one that's an octave lower than the tenor recorder. It seems to be rarer. Like I only know 2 people who have great basses. Oh no, that's not true. Nori got one. So 3 people, 4 people. I guess maybe it's as equal. Never mind. I retract my statement.
Okay. So I thought maybe I'd share one more piece. Okay. I also enjoyed the dance with cello. I was curious where it was filmed and who did the choreography.
Well, the dancer, Melika Guerra, she used to be a Boston area resident. She now resides in New Jersey, but she is one of the founders of, or maybe the founder, I don't know, Luminaria Dance Company, which is, I think, based in Boston. Yeah, anyway, I've seen them.
We did a concert with them.
Yes, yeah, they're glorious. So did you meet Melika when you did that concert?
I believe that we did. The name sounds familiar. I don't think she was choreographing at that time, or at least didn't choreograph the pieces that we did, but I do remember seeing her.
Well, she's the dancer in that video, and she did the choreography. I originally wrote that as a collaboration with her, and it was originally premiered at Longy with her dancing and Christine Bucas playing Baroque cello, which was awesome. In this edition, and I had done a lot of little blips and bloops and Super Collider to go along with the Baroque cello. In that video that's on my YouTube channel, it's Madeline Shapiro, who's a New York area cellist. She had been paired with me to do a piece for the New York City Electronic Music Festival, NYCEMF, yes, last year, but it ended up not being live, so I created the video for the festival.
Cool, awesome. Oh yeah, Merle. Now that I see her name, yeah, she did choreograph a piece with us with BNMI.
Nice.
So, you can check that out on our YouTube page. I'll find it and I'll put it in the comments after.
Yeah, put it in the chat.
Um, all right, so let's share. Here we go. Here, and here we go. right. Oh, there we go. All right, let me find that other. I'll find the link for the piece that she choreographed for us. Would anyone like to ask? We'll probably be wrapping it up. So open questions for Mel on this piece or anything, any piece. Things.
Crickets, I tell you.
um, right.
Kristen has one. Which recorder did you start on?
Bass, or bassette, as the kids like to call them these days. It's a fifth of an octave lower than the tenor, so it's an F recorder. And most recorder quartets, it's the lowest instrument. It's soprano, alto, tenor, bass. So that is the one I started off with when I was playing with the Renaissance ensemble, Urban Myth, and that's the one I still play with my trio Qualisma consort.
Strange.
I love bass. All of the bass. So.
All right. I'm having trouble finding. I'm pretty sure this is it. So let me just share it really quick.
Okay.
Pretty sure she did Fahrenheit, which she did this piece that I was very surprised, but it's kind of similar to your piece, just in that, like, you know, when you think of dance, a lot of people sort of assume that it's going to be rhythmic.
Well, over time,
and, you know, it doesn't have to be. Just
no, it just has to be something expressing something that the dancer can also express, or express something different in contrast to.
Yep.
So.
Right.
Oh, recorder books that have interesting pieces in them. What's his name? Eric Haas, Haas, who's at the Von Huna workshop in Brookline. During the pandemic, he did soprano, alto, tenor, bass solo recorders. So, books for solo, alto, solo, tenor, and I have 3 pieces in 3 of the 4 books that he did. So he's got interesting music for. You can get the alto recorder book for your mom.
Nice. Okay. Yeah. Did I spell it right?
Yes.
Perfect. There you go. So if you're interested in some new music for a recorder.
Well, it's actually it's medieval to modern. So
right.
It's a very hefty volume of music.
More interesting music for recorder.
There
yeah. Including modern stuff and not, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. All right. Well, again, thanks everyone for being here. Make sure to check out, especially our recorder workshops, but all the events at the Living Music Summit, June 3rd through 5th. You can see everything again at bostonnewmusic.org/tickets. Yeah. So again, thanks again. Thank you, Mel. It was really fun to have you on.
Thanks for having me.